Okay, we're going to call our meeting to order. Let the minutes reflect all members are present. The first thing we do is set the agenda. Anybody like to add or change the agenda today?
President Preiner, staff would like to add a new action item 7 and renumber accordingly medical leave update.
Okay, anything else?
That would be it.
And I would like to remove the permit number 21-099 from our consent agenda and put a separate vote for that. Anybody else?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the agenda as revised.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Approval of the minutes?
Madam Chair, I move approval of the regular meeting of the Rice Creek Board of Managers, April 27th, 2022.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the consent agenda. Everything with the exception of 21-099. Any questions for Patrick? Patrick, anything changes?
No comments today.
Okay.
Madam President, give me a second here. I thought I had some.
Oh, okay. Take your time.
Must have been a different item. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Need a motion?
Madam President, I move to Caprock permit number 22-008, 22-013, and 22-019.
I'll second that.
The motion and second. Any further discussion?
Madam Chair, after over 2 years on the board, I learned a new acronym today.
Oh, no.
It's on the permit 22-008 regarding Mounds View School. NURP is National Urban Reduction Pond.
Yep. Nope.
Slowly, we're getting it there. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, now we'll do the 21-099 Bergman Builders.
Do we have a
Call the
vote?
on it.
Oh, I'm sorry. We had a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, go ahead.
Madam President, I move to approve permit number 21-099,
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
or actually to Caprock, I'm sorry.
Caprock.
Caprock.
Permit number 21-099.
Okay, we'll call the vote. Manager Waller,
Aye.
Manager Wageman,
Yes?
Manager Bradley,
Yes.
Manager Wynant,
Yes.
Manager Preiner, abstain. Thank you. Open mic. Anybody in the audience that would like to speak today? You're good? Okay, thank you. Thank you for attending. Okay, items requiring board action.
Thanks, John.
Joint powers agreement between Rice Creek and Coon Creek Watershed District.
Yes, President Preiner, Board of Managers. This item is on page 53 of your packet. This relates to the permit application 22-015 for the preserve at Lexington Waters. This is a project that falls in both the Rice Creek Watershed District and Coon Creek Watershed District. Majority of the project, 2 of the 3 parcels, 93% of the total acreage is within Rice Creek. So to be efficient in regulation, we've had discussions with Coon Creek, and they're willing to have us serve as the permitting authority for the entire project, because we will have permanent stormwater features outside of our legal boundary. We are required to enter into a joint powers agreement to formalize that we are, the permitting authority for that whole project. So with that, I guess we are recommending that the board managers authorize the board president to execute the joint powers agreement. I guess one other note, the applicant, the landowner, has signed already. Coon Creek Board has approved, but they have not yet signed.
Okay. But we can approve it and sign today. Put it on. Okay. Very good. Need a motion?
Madam President,
Oh, go ahead.
just one thing I noted on page 54, the joint powers agreement. At the title, it says the Preserve at Lexington Waters, Forest Lake, Minnesota. I guess that should be Blaine.
Correct, should be.
Yep.
Direct it to Blaine, please.
Madam President, I would move the district to enter into a joint powers agreement and authorize the board president to sign the joint powers agreement as provided in our packet here on page 54 and 55 with the landowner applicant in Coon Creek Watershed District related to the Preserve at Lexington Waters project in Blaine.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And the second part of that is to consider the permit application, 22-015. There's been a lot of discussion on this project, working very closely with the developers. There's a lot of moving parts here, and one of them including the JPA. We did also want to note on page 59 of the packet, give everyone a second to get there, conditional item number 10. This is something where we will be requiring a petition for 103E401. This is for additional land area that will be draining to 102232 that was not previously included as part of the WMD. So this is an outlet petition that the developer / applicant will need to submit. Within here, I mean, the language is lengthy. It does identify that, you know, the permit process can still move forward while this is being submitted and considered for approval.
Madam President, I have a couple of questions about this one, if I could.
Let's have a motion, and we'll go to discussion. If you don't mind.
Make the motion, Mike.
I'm not gonna make the motion. I would like to ask some questions, so someone else can make the motion.
Okay.
I will make it here if you'd like in just 1 second. Okay. Madam President, I move to approve permit 22-015. Or the Caprock, I guess. Permit number 22-015.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
Yes, Madam President, if I could. Patrick, first of all, this is educational thing, on page 62, just above 3 wetlands, there's a paragraph. There are a total of 9 wetlands on the project sites. Wetlands 1 and 8 are classified as moderately susceptible, and wetlands 3, 4, 6, 7, 9, 11, and 12 are slightly susceptible. What does it mean to be susceptible and slightly susceptible?
Yep, that is identified in our stormwater management rule, and that is identifying the bounce and inundation for stormwater inputs to these wetlands. So how much the wetland can raise in elevation, and then how long it has to draw down back to its normal elevation. And so then that susceptibility class is based on the type of wetland, the vegetation that's in it, things like that.
Thank you. So, then, next page. Last couple sentences on the very top paragraph. DNR found that the avoidance plan does not adequately demonstrate that the protected plant species will not be impacted. That's a double negative. This says that we're concerned that it could be impacted. The applicant will need to provide further information to support avoidance or apply for a taking permit from the DNR. Then there's a period, and it says approved the avoidance plan and no taking. So I'm assuming that we're missing the DNR approved something?
I'm glad you brought that up because I was supposed to mention that and I forgot to. So the portion there that's the right after that period where it says approved and then to required, that should be eliminated. That was left over from when we originally drafted the ER. So to kind of summarize where we are currently, the applicant developer has submitted an avoidance plan to the DNR, and the DNR is finding that they will either need to continue with their current plan and submit for a takings permit, or they will need to demonstrate further buffer from these rare plant species that have been identified through survey. So it's just, we'll need to work that out before.
I think you need to add a sentence
Okay.
that addresses that to-do list. And then on the top of page 64, so it says the current project is running an additional 3.1 acres to the ACD 102232 public drainage system. Is that but for the infiltration, or is that even after the infiltration?
Madam President, Manager Bradley, this is just purely the amount of acreage that is directed over there. So that 3.1 acres right now would be otherwise flowing over to Coon Creek Watershed District. So they're directing more land area, but they're actually going to be, for the 10-year event, reducing the volume by infiltrating more of the water. So that is how they're mitigating that effect, and that's why we're recommending approval of the permit and would be supporting a petition by the applicant to outlet additional land into 102232.
Thank you, Madam President. Those answer my questions with that additional language that Patrick will work on later. I'm prepared to vote.
Madam Chair, I have a question too.
Go ahead.
What does the maintenance declaration look like? Because we're looking at an area that has not only this, but other places in this unit by this developer that has a lot of stormwater retention ponds, or whatever we want to call them today. So what's the maintenance agreement look like?
Yeah, it's a requirement anytime the stormwater management rule is triggered and water quality treatment or rate control basins are required. In this case, I'm assuming they will be privately maintained.
Yes.
So we will require that to be a declaration that's recorded on the property title, and that identifies, I guess that inspection is required. Annual inspection records are to be submitted to Rice Creek. It has some general language on, when maintenance is needed. It's not super specific to any given permit, I guess. But it's to identify that those basins are to be maintained in perpetuity.
And our inspection staff annually inspects all of these private?
It's the private owner's obligation. We don't currently have a program to inspect established basins through permits, after the project is closed and the permit's closed.
Okay. And then the second question is, we partnered on another project, with Coon Creek, where Coon Creek took the lead. Is that the watershed I'm remembering?
Yeah. It's certainly possible. I know that we've recently delegated to them on some wetland decisions for like the Main Street project. Yeah.
So this occurs occasionally?
Well, it's easier than having the applicant have to go to two
Right.
watersheds, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second with.
President
Oh,
Reiner,
go ahead.
if I could.
Sure.
Perhaps only for me, Manager Bradley, could you expand on the addition that you're looking for to be included? And I'd note on page 59, item 3, at the top of the page, and I'm wondering if that addresses what you're intending.
So right now it reads, the applicant will need to provide further information to support avoidance or apply for taking permit from the DNR. Then it says the applicant has addressed all comments and the TEP concerns with that WACA requirements are met. I'm just not clear to me that we haven't in the last sentence undone what we did in the sentence before.
Okay. Very well.
Okay, we have a motion and a second with an addition. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Budget for Long Lake Sediment, page 67, would be Nick.
Yes, President Priner, Board of Managers, the next item was tabled from your previous meeting regarding the Long Lake Sediment Basin and the adjustment of the budget. The board did award the project previously, noted the change in cost of the project, and considered that in its decision. Here, we're simply working to adjust the district's budget so that the cost is covered. You may recall the total project cost was $1.2 million. The district has some additional expenses that it's already committed to, being the lease payments for the location the work will be completed, and also the Houston task order. And after those, we have $171,000, which results in a budget adjustment of $1,033,000 odd dollars necessary.
Any further questions?
Madam President, I move to adjust the 2022 budget for the 95-01 Long Lake Sediment Basin Maintenance by $1,033,556.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
Madam President, I want to reemphasize that at Monday's workshop, we discussed this pretty thoroughly again, as we did at the last meeting, and I refer to anybody who wants to look at it to take a look at the minutes from the last meeting. I thought they covered the discussion extensively, and I want to reemphasize that the need after this is to be, as you said Monday, President Freiner, that we need to start to take a look at this immediately and not put this off for 10 years or whatever it is, because it can get lost, even though it takes a plan change and processes time. Let's get the process beginning. And I'd also point out that we are very constantly aware of Long Lake's water quality. We spend $300,000 plus, and we're going to spend some more on the carp management, which in my opinion, I'm not a scientist, okay? But in my opinion, the carp management program does more for water quality in that lake than I can think of anything else, particularly since the USGS study, in my opinion, did tell us one thing: there's sediment in the water, and there always will be. And so that's just a natural phenomena. But the carp are not. They're an invasive species, and they live in other places than Rice Creek and the chain of lakes, and there's other inlets into the lake that'll have to be worked on. So I look forward to improving the water quality and to remind people that we do spend, that's near over $300,000 now annually on that, and primary beneficiary of it is Long Lake, because that's where they live in the winter.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I believe we need to recess our regular meeting and then continue our public hearing. Am I correct?
Yes?
Okay, so recess our regular meeting and go ahead. Now we're into our public hearing, and that's on ditch 102232. Okay,
Yes, President Priner, as you've reconvened as the Public Drainage Authority, Tom Schmidt is available virtually for this agenda item.
morning, Tom.
Good morning, managers, Madam President. Before you is the findings in order for the correction of the 102232 drainage system record. You had recessed your meeting, as Nick noted, remember April 11th to today, to consider the findings in order. So the next step is to consider it and then order the change in the record.
Okay, would anybody like to propose a motion?
Madam President, I would propose that we adopt resolution number 2022-11, findings in order reestablishing and correcting drainage system record for Anoka County Ditch 10-22-32,
I'll second that.
I'll see if I need to add something to it.
You need to, yeah,
Just read the
read the order maybe.
order portion.
Okay. The Board of Managers hereby reestablishes and corrects the drainage system record of ACD 10-22-32 to reflect the alignment, cross-section, profile, hydraulic structure, locations, materials, dimensions, and elevations, and the right-of-way of the drainage system as detailed in the engineer's amended technical memorandum dated May 13, 2021, and the addendum dated January 13, 2022.
Madam President, can I ask one quick question of,
We need a second, and then we'll go
A
back.
second, I'll second that.
Okay, we got a second? Okay, go ahead.
that does also set the, or memorialize the height on the culverts and everything, right?
Madam President, Manager Wago, no, it does not memorialize the culvert locations because those culverts are a function of the road authority placing them. So it does not establish the culverts as the as-constructed elevation or the as-constructed.
So that does not
capacity.
become a part of the official as constructed.
Correct. The as-constructed record is to the open channel itself, which was originally constructed.
But you have them in the, I mean, this isn't setting it, but you have all that on the plans, sets, nothing's changed from what it was.
Correct. It reflects the existing condition as well as the as-constructed condition.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and so I would consider the culverts as part of an existing condition and potentially a
Right, they're just
restriction.
not memorializing this because they're the authority of the,
Yep, the road authority is
Yeah.
the authority over those.
okay, thank you.
Madam President, I'm confused. Are you telling me that this resolution to reestablish, correct the drainage record, that the record doesn't reflect what the proper elevation of the ditch is there, and therefore, even though the road authority owns that, they don't have the authority to obstruct the system, do they?
That's true.
Madam President, Manager Waller, we are setting the grade throughout the system at the original channel bottom grade. And we're providing the information on the culverts simply to demonstrate the existing conditions at those locations. And you are right that the road authorities are subject to not obstructing the drainage system with those culverts.
Madam President, if I could, so basically, as I understand it, we're setting the conditions for the ditch as ASIC, but we've not issued a repair order by this, and that repair order would take care of where the culverts are.
There you go.
That's correct.
Correct.
That's correct.
Yep.
That's correct. But I just want to make clear that Chris confused me a little bit. I apologize for not understanding it, but I wanted to be certain that the elevations or the profile through the roads is being established, and that any action that the road authorities are responsible for may be taken at time of a repair hearing, or it may be taken by just an obstruction hearing too. But if they're not cooperative, they can be ordered to. They don't have the authority to obstruct.
That's correct. Nick, you had a question, comment?
President Priner, I just noted Attorney Kolb had his hand up
Oh.
at one point, maybe has something to add?
Mr. Cole?
Madam President, I think the confusion has been clarified. The amended report, amended technical memorandum from May of 2021 and the addendum from January of 2022 would indicate that the as-constructed grade and elevation of this portion of ACD 102232 at the culvert locations is different than the actual invert of the culverts. And so as previously discussed by managers, this basically sets the conditions upon which a future repair could have those elevations of the culverts lowered or changed to match the as constructed grade and elevation at those locations, or as Manager Waller pointed out, perhaps an obstruction hearing if they are determined to be placed at an elevation that constitutes an obstruction of the drainage system.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? take a roll call vote. Manager Waller?
Yes.
Manager Wynan?
Yes.
Manager Bradley?
Yes.
Manager Wegman?
Yes.
And Manager Reiner, yes. Motion passes. Okay, now we're at, let's see, then we have to, do we have to go back to the regular meeting and then recess again, or can we just,
You're still assembled as a drainage authority, so you could just continue.
okay, so,
But the other public hearing is now resolved. Yeah.
okay, so that public hearing is concluded. And now we're gonna go to Anoka County Ditch 10-2232, order repair and branch for removal of temporary protective weir.
Yes, President Preiner, Board of Managers. Yes, also related to 102232, this is on branch 4. The city of Columbus in 2020 completed some street work, which included the need to lower the culvert on branch 4, which is under Pine Street. This was placed at an elevation of 901.77, and this was an elevation that the district determined to be the functioning profile. As a condition of resetting that culvert, it was identified that regulated wetlands may be drained, and so a temporary protective weir was installed upstream of Pine Street on that culvert until such time that appropriate permitting could be completed. That is where we are now. The wetland replacement plan has been completed for the type of wetlands, type 3 wetlands that will be presumed to be drained by removal of the weir. That application has been noticed. The comment period is closed. All comments have been addressed. And so then this item includes 2 resolutions. One for the board to act as the drainage authority to order the repair of branch 4 and the removal of the temporary protective weir, and an additional resolution to approve the wetland replacement plan application. So included with this item is both Resolution 2022-12 and 2022-13.
Is 2022-13 also then a drainage authority? Or do we have to go back to regular?
Back to regular.
Back to our regular meeting? Okay, well, let's go with this one first.
Madam President, can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
Before we, isn't it true that if we approve 2022-12, but we're not to approve 20-22-13, we could not implement 20-22-12? So you have
True,
to, you have to understand that you're in for the full bucket or you're not in.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We have a resolution. We need a,
So, Madam President, being one who's willing to be in, I would recommend approval of resolution number 2022-12, which makes the following order. The Board of Managers authorized removal of the protective weir upon satisfaction of the following conditions. 1, final approval of the replacement plan for wetland impacts caused by removal of the weir and restoration of ASIC of branch 4 at Pine Street. 2, securing and encumbering of required wetland mitigation for the impacts according to the approved replacement plan, and that the board directs staff to document a drainage system record for ACD 10-22-32 with both ASIC elevation at Pine Street of 901.77 feet, parens NAVD 88, close parens upstream invert, and the satisfaction of WCA wetland WACA mitigation requirements.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Could I just make one comment? I have been dealing with this, with the landowner that has this weir in his property. And just for future knowledge, he claims he wasn't told it was ever put there, and he found it himself and didn't know what it was. And then he started getting all kinds of information in the mail about it and never knew it was put there, and was completely confused by all the information he's getting about this stuff in the mail. So somehow we need to have some kind of communication effort. So he called me all in a panic, and It's no big deal.
When you say
But I mean-
information in the mail from,
Well, he was
The water-
getting copies of stuff from the DNR that I think we must have been sending him copies of what we were receiving from the DNR, I take it.
President Priner, if I might respond, I suspect what he was receiving was the notice of application, the notice of decision for
Right.
wetland delineation, in that the district public drainage system is associated with private land. We do notice those parties about it. Related but separate issues, but totally recognize the need to be clear in our communication with landowners. So apologies for the confusion to them, and we'll just keep plugging away at trying
Yeah.
to get them on the front end more.
Yep, if we can, that'd just be great. It would just save confusion on
Right.
their part.
Yep, yep.
Madam President, can I ask one more question?
go ahead.
The weir was surprised to me. I didn't know about the weir. That was apparently ordered as
Nor
a
I.
requirement of a permit, not something that came before us, right, correct?
Correct. It was not ordered by the board as drainage authority. It was a staff action in that it was coordinating with, well, I see Tom has come on
Yeah.
to join in. Staff action in noting the dropping of the culvert would likely impact wetlands upstream, putting the drainage authority in violation of the state's Wetland Conservation Act. To avoid that, what might otherwise be a lot of upheaval among agencies and that sort of thing, the temporary weir was put in at the time the culvert was lowered. Respectfully, I believe that Otterness, Tom and such, we had some discussions at workshop about the weir. Maybe it wasn't clear or
I have a
rudimentary.
vague recollection of
Yeah.
knowing about repairing the Pine
Street culvert?
Street culvert.
Yep.
I just may not have understood the complexity of all of this.
That part, that included part was the weir.
Yes.
Maybe Tom want to comment?
Yeah, if I
Go ahead.
could, President Pryor, before Tom jumps in, and maybe he can answer this. I believe the actual culvert lowering was 2 years ago or so when Tom was on the site or thereabouts.
Is that
Yes,
what
Madam President.
We're in?
Go ahead, Tom, then we'll come back.
Yes, Madam President, Board of Managers. It was 2020, city started their project on their road ditch and asked that we lower the culvert, or they be allowed to lower the culvert to allow for positive drainage of their road ditch. And we, as Nick pointed out, in order to head off any regulatory impacts, we decided to protect the wetland up front, not subject the drainage authority to punitive mitigation costs. So yes, 2020, it's been in there for 2 years.
So, President Pryor,
Yes,
if I could just add on and echo a little bit of what Tom said, I would say that the district's intermediate action in coordination with the city of Columbus improved drainage in the area, allowing their road ditch to function and provide drainage relief through the public drainage system as an outlet, but also recognize the need for us to adhere and be responsive to the state's Wetland Conservation Act.
go ahead.
Yeah, and realizing it was 2 years, that does make a difference to me. The landowner, they think the culvert's getting fixed and lowered, and they weren't told about the weir. And so there was no change in function of that ditch for 2 full years after the culvert was put in. There still isn't a change in it, and none of them know it. And that could have all kinds of implications for landowners that are upstream of that think that they're getting now what they're gonna get, and don't realize that there's a weir coming out and that this isn't even functioning yet as it should. I think that's a problem.
President
Go ahead.
Reiner and Tom, Chris, if you have additional information, what I would say is the effort, and this is why I said the interim condition improved drainage from what it was, because of the culvert under Pine Street from its initial installation at that elevation was the condition. At this point in time, in hindsight, we can look back and say, it's not at ASIC because we've just adopted what that elevation was. So the existing condition was what it was, and there was no relief. You're correct. For that upstream to the west, the properties to the east received the interim condition increase in drainage from the City of Columbus's roadwork, and I believe it would be our engineer's opinion that removal of the weir now will take a substantial level of water off the properties upstream to the west.
But what I'm getting at is that they've spent 2 years thinking that that culvert was working, and they may have been making decisions assuming that that's the drainage they were gonna get, and have no idea that that weir is holding it back and making it not function for 2 years. And it's still there,
Yep.
and they don't know about it.
Yeah.
And that to me is a problem. They could be making all kinds of decisions on building and, things we don't know anything about.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
President Preiner, excellent point. Kind of back to the clear communication with landowners, so point well taken. The function of the system, any one of our public drainage systems should be reliable, and we're working to do that. But on any given day, a tree, the pesky beavers, any of those things may compromise it. I certainly acknowledge a 2-year wait, getting to this ASIC elevation, certainty in the record for the district as drainage authority to take these actions, be able to document and defend to the technical evaluation panel, which includes the state's oversight of our administration of the program for WACA, et cetera, are all components of getting us to this point. So with that, maybe a friendly call from public drainage inspector in regards to what's going on to that landowner or others would be helpful to clear the air.
Yeah, and tell them what we've done, the resolutions we passed, and here's the process. that
Yeah,
we're going
there's
into.
nothing wrong with
Yeah,
it, it's just
yeah.
that they're making decisions that may be faulty, based on faulty thoughts. They're thinking they're getting all the drainage they're gonna get.
Right. President Preiner, if I might, just a little bit more there, and I recognize that, you're always making decisions, anyone would, on the best information available. And this is but one component of that information. We all know that last year's drought or intense rainfall event, is gonna change the conditions on site in some potentially meaningful way for the decisions that they're making. The district does receive and respond to any number of phone calls about the function of the public drainage system, whether there is a blockage or not, or what might be going on. So it's always good for us to have the eyes and ears of the public on the system. It allows Tom, Ashley, Katie, and our staff, along with Houston, to get out there and see if there is problems that need to be addressed.
Any further comments?
Yep. No, thank you very much.
Okay, nothing further, we'll go to a vote. Waller,
Yes.
Wyatt,
Yes.
Bradley,
Yes.
Wageman,
Yes,
Reiner, yes, motion passes. Okay, now we're going to close the Drainage Authority meeting, and we're gonna go to our regular meeting for Resolution 2022-13.
Madam President, I would move Resolution 2022-13, Rice Creek Watershed District Board of Managers, a local government unit, LGU, for the Wetland Conservation Act, determining sufficiency of the wetland replacement plan application related to wetland impacts resulting from the proposed repair of Branch 4 of Anoka County Ditch 10-22-32 at Pine Street in the city of Columbus, ordering the LGU, Rice Creek Watershed District, determines that the replacement plan application meets the standards outlined in the Wetland Conservation Act and is therefore approved. The LGU, Rice Creek Watershed District, further determines that removal of the protective weir may proceed in compliance with the requirements of the Wetland Conservation Act.
Need a second?
Second, I reckon.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
Madam President, the replacement plan was provided to us just prior to our workshop. Had a chance to look at it. It's my understanding that was prepared by staff in accordance with our standards for WACA work. It requires, determines there's a little over an acre of impacted wetlands by the result of removing the weir. I was told and will seek confirmation of the fact that when and if we continue our repair at the ASIC level of the rest of the ditch, that we have already addressed the impacts on the wetlands so that we don't have a second bite coming. That removal of the weir itself has this impact by lowering the drainage by about a foot. And that the impacts are, because of the type of wetland, there's a 2-to-1 ratio requirement, so we require about a 2-acre removal replacement, and that we intend to do that from our existing district facility, Browns Creek Preserve, a wetland. And that's my understanding. I'm looking for someone to clarify or.
President
Go ahead.
Preiner, and it looks as though Patrick and Chris want to make a statement as well. I would say that is correct, Mike. Excuse me, Manager Bradley.
I know my name, it's okay.
I would, my qualification on the first statement about the drainage at upstream, so the removal of the weir was, I'll say, chased upstream to a given location where there's likely another constriction, let's say another culvert. So anything upstream of that may be a different matter. It's not a blanket, we're good for, it's just this segment as the engineer explored it. And maybe, I see Chris would like to chime in at this point.
Yeah, Madam President, actually, we performed the analysis that supported the application from the engineering side, and what we did actually look at was what the effect would be all the way through in the repaired condition all the way through there. Okay. And right now, from our most recent survey, the majority of that ditch going upstream, which includes Branch 4 and Branch 4A, are down to the as-constructed elevation. It wasn't that long ago that the district hired a contractor to excavate that out. So for the most part, when the weir is removed, it should be a very close approximation of the ASIC condition as far as the conveyance capacity of that goes. And so I think we're already there. There aren't any other culverts upstream that would be potentially blocking or hindering the drainage. We did take that into consideration in our analysis.
Madam President, we've heard a lot about Joe Drell Street. Is there any impact related to that?
Manager Bradley, no, because that's another branch. That's the main trunk, and so this branch 4 only proceeds up to the north and northeast about a mile in either direction there. It doesn't include that drainage from Joe Drell.
Thank you.
So, Madam President, I have a question for clarification here.
Go ahead.
I always thought that Anoka County was a 1-for-1 replacement. Would you update me on the rules, please?
A lowered replacement ratio would be for our CWPMP areas. Typical the siting criteria through the Wetland Conservation Act would put this one at 2-to-1.
2-to-1.
Yes.
Instead of the 1-for-1.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Tom, any comments? No? Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Call the vote. Waller?
Yes?
Wynan?
Yes.
Bradley?
Yes?
Wageman?
Yes.
Reiner, yes. Motion passes.
President Priner, I'll note that staff will then proceed with the procedural matter of submitting the paperwork to the state. The removal of the weir will occur when we receive confirmation that the bank has been appropriately debited. So, Manager Wagaman, our communication with any landowners would reflect that, and we'll take the action as quickly as possible.
Yeah, do you have an estimate? Do you, just a guesstimate? Because I know he's gonna call me.
I'll preface my answer with federal is very slow. The state may be slow. And I'd look to Patrick. I know the state has worked diligently to improve the efficiency there. Any ideas, Patrick, on what the turnaround time might be there?
Yeah, when the transaction to withdraw the credits is submitted, a week or two.
Oh,
I think it's a pretty quick turnaround.
Okay,
Yep.
Yeah, they've been-
thank you.
Okay, so what hat are we wearing next here?
Madam President,
Go ahead.
I know that Tom has his hand
Oh,
raised.
Tom,
and
sorry.
I'm guessing that he might be indicating that there might also be additional turnaround time to get the contractor out there to ink it out too, which I'm not sure exactly
Yeah.
what the lead time on that. Maybe Tom would.
Tom, go ahead.
Yes, Madam President, Board of Managers. The actual road restrictions for spring will limit our ability to get equipment there to remove the weir. So we've discussed possibly just hand cutting the weir out temporarily before it can be totally removed. So we'll investigate all options, and then I'll follow up with the landowner on our plans.
Okay. Thank you.
So which hat is it?
President,
It's just a continuation, right?
so President Priner, you would reconvene the board as a public drainage authority and continue the public hearing on RCD 8.
Okay. So we're gonna recess our regular and reconvene as drainage authority.
President Priner, Tom is here to represent this item.
Who is?
Tom
Okay.
Schmidt.
Tom, oh.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Tom.
Madam President, Board of Managers, just like you just did for RCD or ACD 102232, excuse me. This is the final step in correcting the drainage record for RCD 8, Ramsey County Ditch 8, excuse me. You have continued your hearing until today. Before you is a resolution of findings in order, correcting the record for Ramsey County Ditch number 8.
Madam Chair, I would move Resolution 2022-14, Rice Creek Watershed District Board of Managers, finding and order reestablishing and correcting drainage system record for Ramsey County Ditch 8. The Rice Creek Watershed District Board of Managers is the drainage authority for Ramsey County Ditch 8, and there are a number of other findings. I will read beginning on finding 15, which follows a number of references to individuals who put findings into the record. So the board has considered the public comments and find that none of the comments received call the accuracy of the engineer's report and recommendations into question. The board has reviewed the technical memorandum and adopts the same as the official report and recommendation in these proceedings. Said amended technical memorandum is incorporated by reference into this resolution. Future work on the drainage system will utilize the as-constructed and subsequently improved conditions established in these proceedings as a baseline for determining future repair or improvement of the system. Following the receipt of public comments at the hearing and disclosure of the public comment period, the board continued the hearing to its regular meeting on May 11th, 2022, in order to consider the proceedings and prepare findings and an order. The board finds that the proposed alignments, cross-sections, profiles, hydraulic structures, locations, materials, dimensions, and elevations and right-of-way of Ramsey County Ditch 8 as described in the engineer's amended technical memorandum and addendum is supported by the weight of evidence in these proceedings. Corrections and reestablishment of the drainage system record to adopt the proposed alignment, cross-section, profile, hydrologic structure, locations, materials, dimensions, and elevations and right-of-way of Ramsey County Ditch 8 as described in the engineer's amended technical memorandum will provide for the efficient administration of the drainage system. Adopting the proposed alignment, cross-section profile, hydrologic structure, location, materials, dimension and elevations, and right-of-way of Ramsey County Ditch 8 as described in the engineer's amended technical memorandum and addendum will reconcile the historical record of the drainage system with the evidence-supported alignment, dimension, and grade of the system as it has historically provided public benefit. Therefore, the Rice Creek Watershed District Board of Managers makes the following order. Hereby reestablishes and corrects the drainage system record of Ramsey County Ditch 8 to reflect the alignment, cross-section, profile, hydrologic structure, location, materials, dimension, and elevation, and right-of-way of the drainage system as detailed in the engineer's amended technical memorandum dated February 2nd, 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Questions, discussion? Anything? Hearing none, we're going to call for the vote. Manager Waller?
Yes.
Manager Winan?
Yes.
Manager Bradley?
Yes.
Manager Wakeman?
Yes.
Manager Priner, yes. Motion passes. So we will close that meeting and reconvene in our regular
I'm
meeting.
glad you gotta do this, keep
Okay.
this straight.
So we got down to MPCA. Kyle?
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, we have for your consideration today approval of a grant agreement that's being offered to the district by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency in the amount of $76,805. And this is for the district's climate change and floodplain resiliency project. We discussed this with the board going back to December of 2021 at the workshop. Staff received consensus to submit an application to PCA's planning grants for stormwater, wastewater, and community resilience program. And we were successful in being offered an award, which is exciting for staff. This is largely a planning project. We would be working with Houston Engineering to model a variety of what you might call outlier extreme storm events. And this would be an extension of their recent work to model 500-year floodplains around the district. We're continuing to look for areas of the watershed that are less resilient than we'd like to see against flooding due to extreme weather. Part of this project would also result in a series of workshops where we'd be working with Freshwater to share the results of the study with affected communities through those workshops, and also look for critical flood control capital improvements, potential locations and concepts. So again, very exciting project. We're looking forward to this. And we're looking for board's approval of that grant agreement. It is a partial grant award. We had originally asked for up closer in the ballpark of close to $100,000. There was a lot of interest in the program statewide. And again, PCA has offered us that amount of $76,805. This would result in, we're proposing no scope changes with the reduced award. And so that would result in the district's local match out of our own budget of around $33,000 change, which would come, which is available within the budget and would come from our Fund 60-11 Regional Water Management Partnership projects. We also have a task order for your consideration on the backside of that with Houston. We have task order 2022-005, which again outlines those tasks which were assigned to Houston in the original PCA application and the grant work plan. And that task order is for an amount not to exceed $79,482. A contract with Freshwater for their work in helping to plan and organize those workshops is expected to not exceed $20,000. That will be forthcoming, and we're looking for the board's authorization for the board president to execute that contract once received upon an advice of council. As a part of those workshops as well, we're looking for a diverse group from our municipalities and community partners. It may not necessarily be city staff. It may be folks who might serve on a city planning committee or other residents of the watershed that are involved in neighborhood planning that may work in these workshops. They're going to be very intensive, long workshops. And Freshwater's recommendation is that the district make up to $5,000 available as stipends for direct expenses for workshop participants. And that is that amount is included in that local match number I mentioned earlier. So with that, we have a proposed motion in your packet on, what is that page number? Page 99 of your packet. And I'd be happy to take any questions ahead of the motion.
Okay. Any questions for Kyle?
I do have one question, if I could.
Do you want to go ahead and make the motion and we'll,
Okay.
okay. Page 99.
Yep. So I move to authorize the administrator to, one, execute the MPCA grant agreement and transmit to MPCA for signature, and two, execute the Houston Engineering, Inc. Task Order 2022-005 for an amount not to exceed $79,482 upon receipt of a fully executed grant agreement from the MPCA. Three, authorize the board president to execute a contract with Freshwater for an amount not to exceed $20,000 upon receipt of a fully executed grant agreement from the MPCA and an advice of council. And finally, to make up to $5,000 available as stipends for direct expenses to resiliency workshop participants.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
I just had one question, educating me again, if you could.
No problem.
Page 108 of our packet, page 2 of 3 of the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency memorandum. It says that we're going to develop and host 1 3-hour facilitator training for table facilitators. Apparently it's an Atlas 14 table. Why don't you tell me what these facilitators are facilitating?
Madam President, Manager Bradley, that workshop that's listed there is actually where Freshwater would come in and assemble Rice Creek staff and others and basically train us in how to help host the actual resiliency workshop. So it's kind of a train the trainer session internal to the district's project.
And what are the tables referred to?
Tables, that's referring to, so for instance, if I was one of these staff members who was to participate as a facilitator for one of the workshops, I would sit at a table, physical table with other workshop participants. So that's the terminology there. Yeah.
Kyle,
As a real
Kyle,
table.
Okay,
Beth?
thank you.
this is Beth Carino. If I can interject, groups might have been a better word than tables,
Yes.
since they are dealing with engineers and table type people here. So it's group leaders. So
Yeah, if that's the toughest question we get today, I'm happy.
No kidding.
Any other questions for Kyle or Beth? If not, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, now we go to the task order on page 112.
President Reiner? I believe the motion was to
To
wait
include this?
until the grant agreement was executed by the PCA and comes back to us, and then
Okay.
we've authorized for the task order to proceed.
Okay, so that's included in the other motion.
Yeah, without jumping into the detail in the motion, it says administrator, but I'll note that the task order would be typically signed by President Priner, and,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, thank you for
Well,
the clarification.
Yep.
Okay, and then we move 7 to,
Yes,
go ahead, medical leave.
yeah, President Priner, the new item 7 was medical leave update. Previously, I transmitted a confidential memo to the board of managers. We did have a bit of a discussion at the workshop. I believe we had consensus there to proceed with that and for the administration of the couple of bullets that were at the bottom of that memo.
Madam President, pursuant to that discussion at the workshop, I would move that we approve the administrator's confidential memorandum dated May 6th for further execution.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second.
I have some comment
Further
here.
discussion, go ahead.
Yes. First of all, I want to point out that there's no demotion of Drainage Inspector Schmidt. And I want to point out that Drainage Inspector Schmidt came here from the Board of Soil and Water Resources with 10 years of experience. He worked directly for the state engineer, which was Al Klein at the time, and worked in drainage and in wetlands. And his specialty is to understand how to fix the drainage without ruining the wetlands, or to fix the wetlands without ruining the drainage, whichever way. And he's had 15 years of experience at here. That's a 25-year background. And I wanted to also point out that while he was at the state, he contributed both with written and diagrams to the state drainage manual, which many of these items are still there in the manual today. 15 years after he's left, his contributions are still in the state drainage manual. That's an excellent and expert or master that we have of this particular knowledge. And so I am very happy with Miss Ritchie and her progress so far. I do not want to lose or in any way subordinate Mr. Schmidt's knowledge and his experience and what he's contributed to our district here. And so I support this. And by the way, Mr. Administrator, this was a well-written document. That's the only comment I have to make about it, is that Mr. Schmidt is not being demoted here at all.
This
It
isn't
is-
confidential.
So, it may be, but it was in public meeting before it wasn't in closed session, so.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Check register?
Madam President, I move to approve the check register dated May 11th, 2022 in the amount of $102,010.14, prepared by Red Path and Company.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Engineer,
President
Go ahead.
Reiner, if I could interrupt, I received a communication from Kyle. He notes no live feed, so just an apology to anyone who might be
Oh.
trying to watch. I don't know if that's indeed the case, but just making note of it. So, there
That
he
was,
is.
if I can interrupt, that was corrected early on in the meeting, so the Zoom feed has been live for quite some time.
All right, thank you.
thanks, Kyle. District engineer, update and timeline. Any questions for Chris? None? We're gonna go to administrator updates.
President Reiner, I'll just note the email that I sent the other day in regards to the concerned landowner, Ms. Colby, and communication that I shared with you. Staff is attentive to the regulatory matters that may be triggered by the work she's referencing, and of course, we will coordinate with the city of Roseville as the landowner intends to move forward with his property.
Okay, go ahead.
We've had this happen before where an individual has contacted all the board members and the city and, a number of folks. I guess I don't note on, I see the CCs on those, and sometimes the administrator is contacted and sometimes not. So, Madam Chair, in that case, can we rely on you to forward it to the administrator, or should we all forward it to the administrator?
That's been the process I've used, because I think we need to speak with one voice to any comments,
Correct.
and then I do forward it to.
Okay, just clarifying that, because we do get those on occasion
Mhm.
where we're bulk copied on things and just to,
I think it's good for the citizens to make us aware, but I think we have to act as a watershed district in answering.
Right.
That's my general feeling. I don't know what anybody else wants
No,
to do.
I agree.
so I'm just clarifying, you as the chair will forward
Will
those
forward
on to
it
the
on.
administrator, so the
Yeah.
administrator isn't caught off guard with some of
And
those
I don't know why
comments.
they do that. I wish they would include the administrator, because he has to represent us out there.
Right,
But that's fine.
okay, thanks for that clarification.
Yep. Anything else? Nick?
I have nothing. Thank
Nothing
you.
else? Manager's update. Manager Waller.
Thank you, Madam President. So last Wednesday, I attended the Washington County Consortium meeting there. There was a virtual meeting. Hopefully, they'll stop doing that soon and have them in person. The Met Council was providing a talk about trees. They're in favor of more trees. And being I'm a favor of trees and planted lots of trees and believe in trees, I've sheared them, cut them, planted them, whatever it is, and I'll be planting them here next month when they spring up in my bed where I grow them. I was happy to hear that. But they were worried about 13 trees in downtown Minneapolis and the lack of diversity. Now, I don't know if they meant lack of diversity of species or if this has to do with human beings. But I want to point out that oftentimes government agencies are at odds with each other, and this is an example of it. The Department of Natural Resources and the Met Council. So the Met Council wants us to plant more trees in Washington County. Okay, fine. And on the other hand, the park system that the DNR runs may not be necessarily a goal of theirs for more trees. They might want more water. And in my living area in northwest Washington County, we have not 13 trees lost, but square miles of them, of tamarack, birch, ash, and we can, but here at the district, we've had success, of course, up on ditch number 5 because we talked to the DNR and they decided it was to their advantage not to flood the whole place, and because they wanted that portion of their park for a different system. So that was very interesting listening to for a while. Second, I'd point out to you, there's been a couple of articles in the newspapers lately about White Bear Lake. And I'm just going to boil this down because I'm not a scientist. But I have lived in that area for a few decades now. As you can see, I'm a blonde. And the individuals that started this lawsuit in the government about White Bear Lake being harmed, never in my life that I've lived there do I ever remember anybody starting a lawsuit about the harm that was done to the aquifer when they were pumping the aquifer into the lake. As long as they pumped the aquifer from the 1920s until 1980 approximately into the lake, nobody cared about the aquifer. Then those folks that have a whole lot of resources, I suppose is a polite way you put that these days, decided that if the aquifer couldn't be pumped into the lake, why neither could the rest of us have a use of the aquifer for washing or drinking or such like this. And so this has gotten to be quite a mess. And there's a bill in the legislature, I hope, that goes into effect. And to show you just how this can get carried away, on that same theme about government agencies back and forth, Met Council a few years ago went to court and sued the city of Lake Elmo and said, you must put in sewer, we want higher density of housing in your town. And they didn't want to do that. So they did it, they lost and they had to put it in. And then they drilled a well, and they wanted a well because they said, listen, we don't want this PFAS water in ours. And the DNR says, you can't have a permit because you're gonna take water out of the aquifer for harm White Bear Lake. Come on, there has to be some common sense here sooner or later.
Don't bet
I
on
think we're
it.
talking never, not later.
Well,
Yeah.
we're talking. Well, I mean, you know, I don't know what else to say about it other than that I don't understand what the magic of this 5 miles is, what that's got to do with it or any of it. But we try not to do those kinds of things here anymore, you know. I mean, that's kind of our point, and I'll leave it at that. That's all I have to report at this time.
Thank you. Manager Wyatt.
The only thing I would note is I was looking at the calendar and our August board date, I think it's the 14th, is also when the MAUD annual meeting is. So we may want to reschedule or have a meeting up there. It's actually in East Grand Forks is the MAUD meeting, so just something to take a look at
We'll
prior
have to
to
relook at
August.
that, yes, yes, we will. Anything else?
Nope.
Good, Mike?
Just noted that in today's paper, a report that Arden Hills has entered into an agreement with a developer for the TCAP properties and is forwarding it on to Ramsey County, see if they can finally get some agreement on this. There's a
Nice.
significant disagreement on how many homes are going to be built and how many of them will be affordable homes. But it seems to be, again, at least some movement, and watch that space, I guess.
Steve?
I have nothing. I'm just glad to hear that.
Well, I know Kyle ran off, I think, for a meeting. He may know more than I do.
Oh, that's what that meeting
Oh,
was.
yeah, that's right, the other day.
So,
No, nothing new from me. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam President, I move we adjourn.
Second?
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Steve, as treasurer,
A buddy of mine
I
I
do
went to
have a
high school
comment
with,
about
he
our